Hola.
Look, look, man, I'm in an awkward mood. Okay, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I'm gonna start it right now. I'm in an awkward mood. Welcome to the Cruxman, episode 28. I see you just updated that. That's good to know. I am Papa. With me, as always, is the homie Salt. We are the Cruxman. Coming to you live. Just kidding. This is a recording. We'll
Yeah.
be coming live soon. We got lots of things we keep saying we're going to do soon, and we're going to keep those promises.
It's live
You
now.
know? Yeah.
Technically.
Hey, it is. It is. It is. So let's
Mm.
talk about keeping promises. You know what? I didn't even know where I
Mm.
was going. Let's just go with keeping promises. Okay.
All right.
With promises. All right. Here we go.
Mhm.
Okay. Keeping promises to yourself. Keeping promises to a loved one. Maybe I'll give you an example, right? So the company that I work for has this fitness challenge, right? So accountability type of stuff. So you got to document what you're doing and your fitness, and you make your own goal, but it's up to you to set that goal, right?
Mhm.
That's one of those things where it's like, hey man, this is kind of like for your betterment. Seems like that's probably an easy thing to uphold, hold yourself accountable. Like, I guess if your determination is strong enough, even if you fail, you continue to move forward, right? It's not like,
Mhm.
oh, this is dead in the dirt. But when you make a promise to a significant other or a loved one, like, man, I don't know why that seems like so much more difficult. And it's not like, I don't know, for me, it's not like, hey, I promise I won't, cheat on you. That seems easy enough. But it seems like an off the wall thing. I know a lot of relationships have their issues, they're particular to their relationship. And I'm not trying to tap dance around anything necessarily, but, you know, I'm wondering, I guess it's more of a question. Like, have you ever been in a relationship? This is either a question for you or a question for anybody listening, but have you ever been in a relationship and somebody's given you an ultimatum, right? An on the spot ultimatum, something maybe off the wall, something that is maybe uncharacteristic of who you are. Um, but either way, one, we'll start with the easy question. How do you deal with ultimatums?
I don't.
Mm, that's
Uh, you know what? And I say this only mainly because of having been given ultimatums where it's I don't like the terms of said ultimatum. I know back in the day when I felt I had everything to lose, I would comply. You know what I'm saying? Having gone through that and not liking the way that's felt in the past, and ultimately for it to just fall apart anyway, I now do not play ball with the ultimatums. If I get an ultimatum, we're done. You know what I mean? Because for me, an ultimatum means there's no wiggle room. You
right.
know what I'm saying? And if there's no wiggle room, then I don't see for me like I'm not. There's some things I can go cold turkey. There's some things that we all take time to make those transitions. You know, so like for me, if depending on what the situation is, yeah, no, absolutely not.
So
But
like if a girl was like, like, hey, like it's like even if it's a singular one time ultimatum,
yeah,
like, hey, like if you go to the Super Bowl party with your boys, you can either stay home with me or go to the Super Bowl party with your boys. But if you don't stay home with me, XYZ is going to happen.
then I'll say, well, I guess I'll see you later.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I will press that. I'll push the test because my thing is in a situation like that, if I especially if she knows that this is something that'd be like awesome, it's gonna bring me joy. I'm going to the Super Bowl. I guess we're done. If it meant that much to her, where one day me going and hanging out with the fellas is gonna like, it's the end all be all. We're done. Now, granted, it all depends on.
Just a test, though. That's just that. I think that's accepting. Like this is over.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing about it is, so the thing, and this is what it is too. Like, I think sometimes when it comes to ultimatums, people want to see what you're gonna do. I think it's just it's more of like, okay, like,
so they're testing you
100% to see, like, does he have balls? How much does he care? All this other stuff. But for me, I look at it as someone throwing a tantrum. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go kicking and screaming. This is what little kids do, right? This is what children do. They get out in public, they start wilding out, and they're testing you to see like what you're gonna do about it. For me, I'm the type, well, pop, right in your mouth. Shut the fuck up.
Mhm.
And then that's it. And now we're not gonna have this issue no more. Because now you know where I'm at.
Right.
And guess what? You know what that kid's gonna do? They're gonna be like, this didn't work out for me last time. You know what I mean? So like for me, like, when it comes to that, especially when like the female gives me like an ultimatum, I'm not with it, especially if I don't feel like I'm in like the wrong. Now we can have a conversation about it, but
Okay.
don't sit there and tell me that if I don't do whatever it is that you're going to, the one thing that you know that I value, and granted, I'm not knocking women, right? Because I know guys put females through, they run them through the gambit too. You know what I'm saying? However, I'm talking from a guy point of view. This is what women do to guys that care about their kids. You know what I'm saying? They'll dangle that over their head because maybe the guy's like not necessarily in the relationship for her. He's in it for the babies. So he does what he's got to do and he'll play ball. And because she knows that, that's the one thing that he holds dear. And a very vindictive, evil type of person, right? Man, woman, whatever, you know what I'm saying, will use that to their advantage to make someone play ball. That type of ultimatum. You know what I'm saying? And those types of terms, I find it to be fucked up. And I don't like it. So that's why for me, when it comes to ultimatum, and I don't give anybody, for me, and I had to think about this myself, you know what I mean? Like in many a time, I was like, I don't like ultimatums being placed upon me. I don't like to give ultimatums. However, what I do is, and it's kind of that, but for me, I just kind of get to a point where like, you know what, I think it's just best we just go our separate ways. I'm not going to sit there and say, do one or the other. I'm going to be like, you know what, I think it's just better that we just do this. And I'm going to make the decision for you. And then we're going to just part ways and we'll just call it good. And I'm not going to, I don't want you to have to choose. You know what I'm saying? Anything at that point, I'm just going to be like, especially because I'm more than likely, I probably had repeated myself numerous times anyway. I'm tired of doing the dance, me personally. So I'd rather just go ahead and just nix it. But the thing is, I have that, I'm in that position where I could do that. You know what I mean? There's certain relationships that I have, then I'll compromise. But to me, an ultimatum's like you're putting a gun in my head. You know what I mean? I don't like that.
So the compromise, right? So I've been doing some reading about this recently, right? I mean, you talk about people putting up, well, we've talked about, like establishing boundaries and expectations in a relationship. We've talked about that before. And now if two people, have, created boundaries, right? And neither is willing to, move or adjust those boundaries. I mean, now you're at a stalemate, right? I mean, that's the essence of compromise, right? Is the ability to go, hey, yeah, I have this boundary, but this relationship means so much to me that I'm willing to adjust that boundary. It's not that you have to completely remove it. You just have to redefine it, in order to make the relationship work if that's how you feel. But if it's hey, this is my hard and fast boundary and I refuse to nudge, which in some cases I get it. I mean, I married my wife, I'm certain she has a hard and fast boundary. Like if you cheat on me, we're done. Hey, you know what? I share that sentiment. So, there's my initiative or incentive rather to not cheat. Not that I need initiative or incentive not to cheat. I just won't because I love her that much, like that's me respecting that boundary, I guess.
You have an understanding. This like,
Exactly. We have an understanding, but that's what I think most things in a relationship should be. It should be an understanding. It
mhm,
shouldn't, especially if it's going to be something extreme. You know what? Like if it's a
mhm.
life changing something that takes you out of who you are, removing a piece of you that you've known for a very long time. It should be a conversation. And I don't care if it's the first time, second time, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, fucking 10th time you're having this particular conversation. If I think over the course of history, there's corrections being made for the positive versus, like, we could use any kind of substance abuse, pornography, video gaming. You know what I mean? Any kind of addiction that people have where they choose to, you know, give more weight to that on a regular occurrence, mind you, on a regular occurrence, they give more weight to that activity than they give to their significant other, then I would agree that that is wrong and the conversation needs to be had. Hey, how about you only play video games on, whatever, pick a night, come to an agreement like, hey,
Mhm.
no video games on the weekends. Weekends are for us and for family, no video games until the kids go to bed, but limit it to twice a week, because maybe, the wife wants to do her thing or whatever, you know, and don't think that this is, and I'm sure women are probably like, oh my God, he's just nitpicking. Like, women are always making these demands. It's not at all. I read a great quote, and I'm telling you what, man, it fucking hit me hard. But I read a quote earlier, and it said that a a woman that wants a man will make time for him. A woman that doesn't want a man will not.
That
And
goes
I
both
was like,
ways. I
it
mean,
does
it
go.
goes both ways because, like, guys that really want a female, they're gonna go after her, and she won't be able to get rid of them. You know what I'm saying? Granted, like, I don't, no means no. Yeah, whatever. Like, that's just the nature of the beast. If a woman's playing hard to get or whatever, the guy keeps pursuing her. That means she knows that he's truly interested. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? If he's got a short attention span, he's like, I don't really care that much. He's not gonna pursue. He's not gonna be coming after her on a regular basis. And that's, I think that's a big telltale sign of like where you're at too with, with someone. If that kind of like that yearning, that attraction, that pull toward gravitational pull you have towards someone. It's like if it's still there. I mean, granted, it's always there in the beginning, right? And that's like the best part. You know what I mean? But then like it kind of fades. But I think once you kind of weather some storms or whatnot, and you kind of get back to that place, then I think that magnetism's even stronger, at least in my mind. Because at that point it's just like, yo, like no matter what, I'm in it for like forever, ever. But it takes a while for folks to kind of gel in that way. You know, but but yeah, it's
we really got to understand each other, though. I think, and you got to be
oh for sure,
willing to listen and shut the fuck up sometimes. Like,
yeah,
I
and you
mean,
gotta be able to like, like you gotta love people, flaws and all. And I'm not saying that if someone's doing heroin in the bathroom and you're not a heroin addict too, that you can be like, oh well, I love you regardless, like shit. I mean, some people do, some people do. They understand maybe they understand what they got into, but my thing is like, flaws and all in terms of like nobody's perfect, you know, you know, people for the most part, especially once you get out of like that lovey-dovey phase, like they know where they're at in terms of where they are in the relationship, like people don't stay if just for shits and giggles if they don't really want to be there, you know? Especially if you're talking about like long periods of time. This is why they talk about like that 5 years. Like if you can get past 5 years, you're kind of like golden, I mean, or like that 5 to 10 year mark, whatever. Just because once you realize that somebody's shit stinks, like their drawers are dirty, it's like, I don't know if I
so
want to do
let's
this forever.
let's stretch the conversation a little bit further, right? So
uh,
let's say you're in the situation where you're all in, and you've always been in that, like lovey-dovey, like God, like I just want to like pull you in the fucking coat closet and make out type of
mhm.
mentality. but then you have somebody making demands and seemingly not even trying to meet you halfway. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not getting the reciprocate. You're not getting that fun from it. Like they're making demands without giving anything, right? So you're still living in that world. And I've had this conversation with many people, girls, guys alike, even my wife. And I know that some people, they're like, oh yeah, you eventually grow out of that. I'll tell you right now, me, I don't. I just don't. You know what I mean? Like I see my wife, like I want to kiss her. I want to hold her. I want to hug her. I want to touch her butt. I want to go. I want to go. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
drag her upstairs. I want to make out on the couch when the kids aren't around. Like I mean, I just that's who I am. I'm a very uh, flirtatious and fun loving. Like let's just laugh together. And enjoy life type of person. But you see folks staying in these relationships. And I beg the question of what are they staying for when those needs or those desires aren't being reciprocated, especially in if it's like a borderline necessity. We talk about love languages all the time. I mean, another quote that I read recently said, love your significant other with their love language, not
Mm-hmm.
yours.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it goes both ways, like you just said. So
For sure.
if my love language is, touch and words of affirmation, and my wife's love language is quality time, well, I should love her by giving her quality time,
Pretty much.
by her definition of quality time, right? Not my
Mm-hmm.
definition of quality time, whatever she defines it as.
Yeah.
And she should love me with touch and words of affirmation by my definition. And
Absolutely.
if we truly love each other, not to talk about my relationship necessarily, but if we truly love each other, or two people truly love each other, it seems like that should be a pretty easy thing to do, you know?
I mean, yeah, especially if when you know. I mean, shit. I mean, to answer your question, why do people stay when they may not be receiving that, like what they want or need out of the relationship? I think they're waiting for the tide to change. I think they're waiting for things to improve. They're waiting this person out to see, like, maybe they're just going through a slump or whatever. And hopefully they're hoping that they get back on track, and then whatever, and this is what I'm saying, like the whole weathering of the storms, like, the ebbs and flows. I think that's what they're waiting on. And, you got some folks out there that they'll wait 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, and then they're just like miserable. And then they'll be like, you know what? I don't think I can do this anymore. And they get upset because it's just like I waited for you and nothing changed,
But
you know?
that's resentment and animosity.
Absolutely. And the thing about it, at the end of the day, like the person, when they do ultimately walk, it's not for lack of trying. It's like, I tried, but it's like, yo, like enough's enough, and I'm not getting anything. And when people start suffering, they start making changes. I mean, simple as that, and that's how people get vulnerable. I mean, shit, like you start chipping in somebody's armor, because like that love, like that, what you're talking about, constantly each other's face and all that, that makes you bulletproof to the outside noise. It's like, whatever. I mean, there's some gorgeous everything's out there, right? But like, it's like, I'm good. I got what I need at home. But when you're not, when you're, and this is why I think some of these ladies of the night, they make their money. It's because there's dudes out there that are, I don't know how females get down, but other than like, they do what they do. But what I'm saying? Like, this is where like I mean, I know I've talked to folks in that business, right? And sometimes these dudes just want to chat. It ain't about the smash necessarily. It's just about the conversation because their wives don't talk to them. And I was like, get
Mm.
out of here. Like that, some of these ladies are like that are just straight up escorts. Like all we do is just hang with them. There's no like sex involved type of thing. I was like, get out of here. Like bullshit. She's like, no, this guy paid me money to chat. I was like, what? But like, I've seen it on movies, and then I met somebody in real life, and I was like, wow, you just confirmed everything that they said.
Do you think it
You know what I
was,
mean?
I mean, in these conversations, I'm sure you asked some of the deeper questions though. I mean, like he paid for you to chat. So is your
Mhm.
obligation to have a real chat, or is your obligation to have a chat that makes him feel good about himself?
I for with her, it was like is not necessarily, when I say chat, it was just he spills his guts, she listens, which resulted in a chat. You know what I'm saying? Just because
Sometimes that's all
nobody
you
else.
fucking need, man. Like, can
Yeah.
you imagine if you could just phone a stranger, download everything, knowing that you'll never see him, speak to him, hear from him, have any contact with him ever again, but you get to unload all that shit,
Man.
like maybe what some of us do in the shower where no one's around, you know,
Yo, you know what's
you,
funny? You say that because that has happened to me. I've lost count how many times it's happened to me when I go out, and of course, my favorite place in the world, the hot tub, in a marination session. Going in there, and I'm talking like I'm there to just mind my own damn business. Like that's all I want to do. I just want to sit here with my music or my audiobook and just zone the fuck out. And the next thing you know, convo ensues, and I don't even know I'm being talked to initially. Cause I'm like, oh, what? Me? Oh, shit. And next you know, I mean, I'm gonna tell you a perfect situation. Holy smokes, man. This was 2 years ago. This is 2022. And I'm at a hotel. And I couldn't go anywhere. I was just kind of stuck, just kind of waiting for, all day. I was just, sitting on my ass. But I'm in this hotel, man. It's Hilton, and it's located near an airport. And all of the flight attendants will go to the same hotel where I was staying.
sounds like
And
Tampa.
nope,
Oh,
it's LA-ish. You know what I mean?
oh, okay.
And so I'm like I got access to a jacuzzi. I'm gonna marinate all day. I got no place to be, and I'm gonna go do that. So I get in there and I'm talking. I've been in there just roasting, doing my thing. The flight attendants come out, and there's one like red bone, light skin. She gets in the jacuzzi. She's attractive. You know what I mean? Thick type, very attractive lady. Short haircut. I'm like, ooh, okay. You know what I mean? And she comes with a couple other gentlemen, little did I also flight attendants as well. And I'm paying no mind to these folks. But I remember like they were going back and forth. They were chatting, and she kind of got a little fiery. And she was like, "No, like you upset me, and blah 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 blah." And the gentlemen, they were of the LGBTQ community. You know what I mean? But I guess one of the dudes said
Never would
something.
have guessed.
I mean, I mean,
Flight attendants, you don't say.
so like I get he had said something to her, and she got like really really upset. And so she was just like, you know what? I'm done with you, blah, blah, blah. And I can't remember what she said. Like, basically, he said something like, I don't remember what it was, but it was like borderline racist. And she was kind of like, how are you going to go there considering that, like we're not like the same, but like, why would you go there? And you're also looking for that type of, like, you're discriminating, even though like you're part of a group that gets discriminated against as well. It's kind of like weird for her, And so, so anyway, like I remember like she is in the hot tub and she's like, those guys, they left and she's like upset, like very upset. And for me, I'm like, I'm in there and I'm trying not to like look, and she's kind of turned around and she's doing like this, and I can see her kind of doing this thing. So I know that she's kind of crying in her back. And I'm just kind of like, and the thing is, everything in me just wants to be like, like, are you all right? But I was like, you know what, man, Charles, mind your business. It has nothing to do with you. You have your headphones on, enjoy your music, and just shut the hell up. And so I did. And I initially I felt bad, but I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna involve myself. Like, I'm gonna keep it pushing. This other group comes in, these folks from New York, they come through and they start kind of, they were chatting, having some convo. They kind of brought her into the conversation about something. And then ultimately, then like I somehow got in that conversation just somehow, some way. We start talking whatever, and these folks leave, and then she starts saying, so yeah, da 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 da. We start kind of chatting. Long story short, she starts speaking about what happened with the dudes, and she tells me, she's like, oh man, that's crazy. And she's kind of just going off like, yo, like, you feel me, da 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 da. And I was like, I have to be honest, I saw you crying. You know what I mean? Like, and I didn't really know, like, she's like, I know you saw me. Thought you were gonna say something. I was like, everything in me told me that I should probably say something, but like I didn't. And I'm like, I feel like an asshole now because I probably should have. Da da da. She's like, no, you're good, but anyway, now we start chatting. Now the combo ensues, and she starts telling me about when she was a kid and her family and this. And granted, like I've been in these situations so many times. It's like, yeah, like we're going back and forth with chat. We're having all these different things. The conversation starts in the jacuzzi, and then it continued on to dinner. I mean, and that was it. Dinner's where it stopped. But then there was like a little club scene in there too. That, you know, her and some other coworkers she was with, you know, everybody was in there dancing, doing, having a good time, a lot. But I mean, so I say that because she was just like, you know what? And granted, like we exchanged information, and she was like, you know, I'm gonna give you my number, and you know, she's like, but we're probably never gonna like ever talk to each other again. So thanks. Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I was like, you're probably right, but you never know. You know, if I'm in, because she was leaving Atlanta and she was on her way to DC. I was like, well, you know, if I'm ever in DC, maybe we'll connect. If you know, if it rings a bell, whatever. She's like, yeah, maybe like some other lifetime, whatever. But then she was like, I'm just glad that we had the chat, and that was it. Like, I'll probably never see you, so whatever. And I was like, yeah, all right, good to see you, blah blah blah, nice to meet you. And then that was it. But she had like a lot to like get off her chest, and I was just kind of like there to like
Phone
do that.
stranger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that so many times. People were just like, you know what? Thanks for listening. We're probably never gonna meet again, so it's all good. And I was just like, okay.
Though that I mean, I would submit 99% of the time, people probably move through life just happy to be there. But that 1% of time, and I'm making up this number, but I mean whatever, like you just got shit. It's written on your face.
Mm.
You can tell by the way people are sitting, by the way they're holding themselves. They got stuff weighing them down, monkeys on their back, all these things that they need to get off their chest because for some reason, saying things out loud to a sympathetic ear or an empathetic ear, whatever, it's relieving almost. I mean, and honestly, to even get a complete perfect stranger's opinion could be good, probably could be bad too, depending on the situation. But I don't think you typically open up to folks like that. You have that intuition about folks, like, hey, like this person seems like somebody I can just let it all out with,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I think that's just that intuition. But
People like something that I did when I went to LA a couple weekends ago now. It was like like a New Year's, like a post New Year party,
okay,
So basically, like
an
the
excuse to
logic.
have it.
Oh yeah, well the logic was like, usually people are out of town or they're with their families during the holidays, so I'm gonna do it a couple weeks later, and when people are back at home, and now we'll celebrate the new year. Where I can actually get people to show up. So that was like the logic behind it. I was like, yeah, okay, I get that, understood. So what people did, what she wanted everybody to do was to write down what they were gonna leave behind in 2023, and and then after that, what we did was everybody read what they were gonna leave behind, and then they put it. We took a match, lit it on fire, and dropped it in the pot, burned it. That was done. So basically, it's gone. I think that's what like people do. I think when people go and they talk to someone, getting it off their chest for whatever reason, it releases that whatever that maybe burden that might be on their mind. It's a way of letting it go. Granted, like far from a Bible thumper, but like there's a lot of, for me, kind of truth in what some of those the words are. When they talk about like death and life is like in the power of the tongue and whatnot. I think there's like a lot to it. I think we take it for granted, some of the words that we say and things that coming out of our mouth. Yeah, the fact that people that need to socialize and communicate, like how much that, like that, I don't know, it unburdens people. Like I don't know what it is. I mean, shit, like that. I think like therapists right now are making a killing because everybody needs to chat. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's on their phones. They're not really communicating. They're not really interacting. They're on their phones. I think that's why people are losing their damn minds. They're not going out and interacting with the world and engaging human beings, And so because of that disconnect, they're left wanting. Like, well, what's missing? Shit. Like real life, not some avatar living it for you, So, yeah. I think people need to, I don't know, man. When it comes to that, I think, and like I've always said it, I'll say it 1,000 more times. I think when it comes to relationships, like the big pie, that that whole pie chart, you chop it up. I think it comes to 60% communication. Then I'll divvy up the last 40 between sex and finances. You know what I mean? And everything else, whatever. If you want, you can you can shrink those other two pies up, that 40%. Maybe throw like a little sliver of miscellaneous. You know what I mean? But people need to chat, man. You know, get on the same page, because if you're not on the same page, everything else just kind of falls to the wayside, and then it just starts to crumble. It's like basically it's being built on sand. If people aren't on the same page, you got to build it on like a solid foundation where it's like, you know, you're like lock and step. Like, so this is what I'm doing. Understood. Oh, you know, I mean, it's just like you could feed off each other, kind of a thing. You know, you see it sometimes, you know, in folks, but this is
I
hard to
think that's
find, man.
having a really strong understanding of your significant other, to the point that you're willing to. I mean, we communication, compromise, it's all the same conversation. I mean, it's, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
the point that you're willing to forego little, you know, little faults here and there, little slip ups here and there. Like, you know, like, I mean, you know, I've heard people talk, you know, in different relationships, people do different things. I've heard some people talk about like, oh yeah, no, we just jive together. It just happens, you know, we're just kind of kindred spirits, you know, like that. Like, you know, and I'll keep using the example of video games, you know, like people who, I'm not a gamer. You know, I couldn't imagine being a gamer because my wife is not a gamer. That just would not work, you know, like never. But I know folks who are gamers, and they're like, oh yeah, my wife and I would play video games together. I'm like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's your thing. It's like, yeah, that's our quality time together, whatever it may be, you know.
Yep.
Um, but you know, then you talk to other people, you know, and this seems to be the more, you know, cliche case, is the guy's like, God, I feel like she just, you know, nitpicks everything that I do, like everything. Like there's, you know, like we talk about, you know, picking your battles. We're taught that from a very young age. Pick your battles.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your battles at work. Pick your battles with your kids. Pick your battles in relationships. Like some shit, especially if it's temporary. I mean, fuck. Like, is it really worth saying out loud? Is it really worth, you know, like, you know, ruining the harmony there because you can't get over it, you know, to without saying it out loud? I mean, and at that point, is that a negative on you as the person who wants to say it just to, I don't know, show that you're better? I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
or to make you feel good about yourself that you corrected something, you know, like for me, like, and this is, I mean, this is kind of a crazy conversation, but I just, this conversation that you and I are having, but I was talking, to my wife the other day, you know, because she likes to, you know, she likes to throw things out there all the time. She believes that like, hey, like, you know, if I correct it at a lower level with me, with the kids, with anybody in her life, you know, I see her talk to her sister, her mom, like coworkers, whatever. So if I correct the little stuff, it won't become big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, so I asked her, I was like, how often do you hear me give you corrections? She's like, not very often. Why? I'm like, and of course she gets defensive. I was like, let me tell you why I don't give you little corrections. It's not that I don't have them. I got mounds of stuff over the years that I could have brought up. I bring
Mm-hmm.
up the big stuff and I let the little stuff die because it's not worth wrecking the harmony. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And maybe that says something about us. Maybe we need to figure out a different, you know, wavelength to operate on, because I mean, if you're in the type of relationship where you can accept small corrections, you know, what we would consider nitpicking. If you're in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship where you can accept those things, you're just like, hey, you know what? You know what? I'll work on it. Thank you for bringing that up. And then you both move on. I think that's a very healthy space to be.
Yeah.
But if either of you or both of you get defensive every time somebody brings something up, then you're clearly not operating in a healthy space. And therefore, I would say focus on the big rocks and leave the little rocks until you get, you know, get your relationship back in harmony, and then you
Yeah.
can start fine tuning things.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, you know what? It's crazy because like the little things, that's when people start feeling like they get nitpicked at. And that's only gonna just infuriate folks. Like, yo, like what the hell? You know what I mean? And I think people should. Something that I've tried to do in the past, and it doesn't. It works, but it was inconsistent, and that was a failure on not only my part but her part as well. But what I started doing was I called it the good and the bad, the ugly list. So like, every 6 months or so, just checking in, like, hey, give me the good. Start with that. Give me the bad, and give me the ugly. The good being like, you know what, hey man, like in the last 6 months you've done this, that, and the third, and like I really appreciate it. Da, 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 da. The bad being like, you know what, didn't really appreciate this, whatever. I mean, just be cognizant of it. Not a fan, but not like game changing. Whereas like we're done. The ugly is like, yo, like this has to like we need to come to the table and work this out because I'm like slowly dying in this with these things. And the whole for me the whole idea of it when I thought about it was the goal was if folks are understanding what they're doing really well, continue to do that. You know what I mean, whatever that might be. Whatever is going poorly, like work on it. But hopefully the game would be, I got nothing for you, ugly wise. Like I think we're like I'm good. Like yeah, there's little bad things, whatever. Like whatever. I know those are like one offs. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not really concerned, or maybe they happen very infrequent. I'm like I could deal, I could manage, but it's
Right.
not something that's like I said, the ugly. Like that's the stuff that like I think breaks relationships, especially when it's like it's consistent and it just persists and it'll just fester and to the point where like some people just aren't like you're just miserable. Like, you know what? Like every single time. And it's not just happening every blue moon. It's happened like on a consistent basis. Or maybe it's so bad every blue moon where it's just kind of like, yo, I can't deal with this again kind of the thing. But usually like consistency is what I think if it's consistent enough, that's where people kind of like tap out. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Like to me, it was just like every 6 months, just check in. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's nothing, but and my goal was like I like honest conversation. Tell me exactly where you're at, and I'll tell you exactly. For me, I have a tendency to kind of be very vocal about it all the time, and I think this is where I get burnt out because it's like I try to be tactful about it, and tactful in my mind, like depending on the nature of the relationship, I feel like people don't listen. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, and this is just how for me, when I'm chill, there's some folks that's just kind of like they pick up what I'm putting down. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, and sometimes I have to be very blunt, like, yo, like this doesn't work. This has to change. Like, it's not working. And I'm not yelling, I'm not raising my voice, no nothing, but it's just like this has to end. Like, I'm just not a fan. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll maybe say that again, like, you know what? There it goes again. Like, not cool. Like for me, I'm just not with it. And then I'll let it die. And that's one of those things. Like I'll just kind of let it bury it. I'll just bury it. But what happens is that for me, I'll let it slide. It'll continue on, but I'll kind of like remove myself so that I don't have to deal with it so often. But then something else will happen down the road. And just because I'm in that state of mind where I'm kind of like, you know what, fuck it, we're already here. Let's talk about this too. You know what I'm saying? And throw it all on there. You know what I mean? Not that I'm keeping tabs, but like, you know what? I've been trying to sit there and just be quiet and just be chill and just let you kind of just do your thing. But now you've like truly pissed me off, and now I'm going to just let you have it. You mean at this
Yeah.
point? Because now we've gotten into the ugly. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and talk about everything else too, and let's put it all on the table. You know what I'm saying? And let's expose it all. Let's just have this moment where it sucks and it's uncomfortable when everything's been said, and then we work to make it better. And
But
then
then
we
is
get
it? I
back
mean,
into
is it an argument though, or is it still just a Is it just an ugly
it.
conversation?
I think I mean it depends
I
on the style. It could be
Yeah, I
an
can't do
argument.
arguments.
Yeah,
I can't do arguments.
I think it depends on who you're dealing with, right? Like some people have for me, I would rather have a hard conversation before it gets to like a full blown argument. And I think those
Yeah,
hard conversations, if people are just being honest, it's like, okay, you know what? It's like a negotiation table, right? Like you sit down and you negotiate in terms of like, okay, how do we move forward? How do we want this to look? Well, I want it to look like this. It's like, well, I disagree. So this is how I picture it going. And then they might be like, I don't like that either. Okay, so now we need to find this happy medium where it's like you're getting what you need, I'm getting what I need, and we can still move forward. Because if we're stuck at this place of where like there's no room for, there's no give, there's no take, and it's just take, you know what I'm saying? Then I'm gonna fuck around and have some buyer's remorse. You know what I mean? You're putting me in a position, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not a fan. Nobody wants to be forced to do anything. There can always be like a win-win, you know. And if not, and this is a great book that I read called Never Split the Difference. This guy was like, well, listen, you kind of know, like, you know what you need, what you want, and then you know how far you're willing to go. However, do not compromise yourself where it's like, now I've lost everything and this person's kind of talked me out of my drawers. You know what I'm saying? And I just gave it to them because I needed a sliver of whatever it was that they were offering, you know?
Sure.
So, and you know, I think that it happens more often than not. And this is where, you know, I think people wake up some years down the road and they're like, how did I get here? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what the fuck happened, you know? Just because, you know, they're slowly kind of, you know, they're kind of selling themselves off a little bit to the point where it's just like they don't recognize themselves. The next you know, they wake up in the mirror, they're like, just now you're going through the motions. You're not even enjoying life no more. You know what I'm saying? Because none of it's
Well,
on
I
your
think
terms.
you need a good, like, a solid crew of folks. Like, and people talk about like their like inner circle of friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the close friends. Like, one, get good friends. I mean, you know what I mean? People who, you know, if you're challenging yourself to do something, make a commitment, whatever, going back to the very beginning of the conversation, keeping a promise, whether it's to yourself or whatever else, you know, get a circle of friends that, one, you can be honest with about things, which is not always easy, especially as a man. You know, like I'm a South, you know, Alabama, Southern born and bred man. Like, I was raised, you just don't talk about your feelings. You know what I mean? Like, I knew when my dad was upset because he'd jump on his quad and he'd be gone for a few hours, you know? And I never knew why. I'm like, he ain't mad at me, you know? But I
Mm-hmm.
never saw him and my mom argue either. So that must have just been him being like, I need to get lost for a little bit. I'm gonna go out in the woods, have a good cry, you know, you know, you know, cuss the sky, you know, whatever it is he needs to
Bah,
do.
bah, bah.
Yeah, chop a tree. Yeah, he probably did. He probably had a couple guns with him, shoot some shit, you know, like, you know. But having that close inner circle of people that you can rely on, you know, that can tell when you're off too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, you don't seem right. You know, you seem different. What's going on? You know, because I mean, I don't care who you are. I will admit that I used to be worse, but I wear my heart on my sleeve sometimes. I've gotten a lot better at it, mainly because, you know, through reading and studying and practicing certain, you know, arts and tactics and stuff like that. You know, there's typically nothing good comes from wearing your heart on your sleeve. It just makes you look over emotional and uh, incapable of controlling your emotions. So I've learned that if things are being said that I don't like or I disagree with, but I know if I talk about it, it's going to make the situation worse, I just shut up. Shut the fuck up. And I sit and I listen. But what I've also learned, though, is by doing that, you're maintaining the power in a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Silence is translated as power in those types of conversations. Somebody can sit here and just ba 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 ba. This is how I think, and this is who you are, and you're wrong, and all these different things. And it's like, I could choose to engage right now, but what's that going to do? Dude, I can't tell you how many times in the last, I would say, the last 5 years, probably, because that's when I really started getting good at it, that I have in my head been like, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up. And not to the person talking to me,
Mm.
but to myself.
Yeah.
Do not engage. Don't engage. Don't engage. Listen, keep listening. Take mental notes. And then at the appropriate times, be like, hey, remember when you said this, that, and the other? Well, now you're doing the opposite. You seem like a bit of a hypocrite. Let's not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. And depending on the person, you know, like, that also doesn't always go over well. But You know, it's like, hey, like, look, you discredited yourself at this point. You know, I'm just pointing it out because nobody wants to deal with that. So
No, not at all, man. Shit, man. It's an art dealing with folks. I don't know, man. It's
it's a skill set. It really is. I mean,
yeah.
I had this conversation earlier, and I can see you're cooking up something right now in your head. But I
No.
had this conversation earlier with a gentleman that we both know, but he's got to be at least 20 years older than we are. Um, but we were talking about, IQ, versus EQ, emotional intelligence, you know, and he was talking about like on the grand spectrum or whatever, like 100 is like the average IQ for Americans. And he dove off into another topic that you and I could talk about because I'd be interested to get your take on it. But this was like, I think this came out in the 70s or 80s. He did this whole study on, how different ethnicities have a different, on average, have a different IQ average,
Mhm.
So like, Asians were like 105. The average white person was 100. The average, Hispanic person was like, I think 90 or 95. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, he was breaking down all these different things. And I was like, all right. I'm like, but how do you define IQ? Because I've had mentors who talk to me about EQ over IQ. So emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
which is a whole different thing. And it's that emotional intelligence that creates, in my opinion, creates the skill set to communicate with folks and have these conversations and, listen. I mean, you and I have both heard great speakers that just connect with an audience. Like, that's an emotional intelligence, that ability to connect with folks, backed up by IQ. But in my mind, IQ is your ability to receive and perceive information.
Yeah.
So, so in other words, if you do your research, you're going to be able to speak about a topic in an educated fashion. But to speak about a topic and connect with folks, that is an art. And I use the example of like, Sheldon Cooper off of Big Bang Theory. He was a genius, but he had zero social skills. He had zero EQ, you know,
Mhm.
massive brain, I don't even know what the scale of IQ goes to, but he was up there, right? You
Menza.
know, yeah, you know, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It's all that stuff can be like developed. I mean, IQ, EQ. It'd be interesting where whatever that test was that had the different ethnicities or whatnot. I mean, there's so many variables and factors that come in that. I mean, I think with EQ, it also comes down to like how you know, like you said, like the guy Sheldon, he lives in books, so he's a super brain, but he doesn't know how to talk to people because he doesn't have that kind of practice. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's people that have actually kind of like suffered through some things. You know what I mean? And actually kind of come out of it on top at the end of the day and are comfortable speaking about it. Those are the ones that have like, next level EQ just because they can relate to folks. If they can still, they depending on where they fell on the spectrum, you know what I'm saying? Some folks, they go like super off the deep end and makes them just like, I don't want to deal with humanity at all. And you got some other people that turn to like Mother Teresa or like a Nelson Mandela. And you know what I'm saying? That dude got locked away for no damn reason and came out and he wanted to like spread love and bring people together. Me, I might be like, fuck all you guys. You know what I'm saying? I ain't supposed to be here. You know what I'm saying? You can go either way. But I don't
I
know.
mean,
Yeah.
that's that psychoanalyzing of your entire life. That's
Mm-hmm.
I personally find interesting with the right people in an environment with folks that I trust. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you right now, and I know that we're close to time, but I'll this is something that maybe we can touch on next time, or give us something to go. This has been a very heavy conversation, which is normally we're a little bit more lighthearted, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I guess we got to get serious every once in a while. But like, okay, so talking about like what could be considered deep rooted issues, and what drives people to get where they're at today. I'll take, me after lots and lots of self reflection. And it's not like I like to, preface everything with things. It's not like I grew up in a bad household. I didn't. I had a mom that loved me. I had a stepdad who adopted me and that loved me. I had grandparents that loved me. I had lots of family around or whatever. But there was something always missing for me as a kid. And it was like, I think it was the appreciation aspect. It was um, knowing that I was knowing and feeling that I was loved and appreciated versus the Southern culture. It's typically just an understood thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for me as an adult, that's translated into a, a lot of my drive, which gets misconstrued sometimes, but a lot of my drive as an adult is is that drive for recognition and appreciation and respect, and in some cases accolades, depending on what it is. I mean, and I've even seen it, where people are taking credit for things that I've done, and that drive, like, I'm like, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go home, grab the bottle, chase it down with a couple of whiskeys, and be like, because otherwise, and you know me, I start fires because we've both seen me do it before. I'm not afraid to, but I just, like, I don't like going there. But I mean, if it's egregious enough, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm pissing on your desk and, starting a fire, and I'm doing all the shit. I'm doing all of it.
Shit in the trash can.
Light
uh,
that on fire too,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, shit. Yeah, it's understandable. Even me, like the last thing I want is any type of individual praise. You know what I'm saying? But as long as it's for me, the recognition piece, it is. It just for me, like I don't need to be like recognized in a public forum. I prefer like hey, you crushed it today. Like everybody, it's a team effort. I know I don't do anything solo dolo, but like hey, like you guys are doing it. You guys are doing it well. I appreciate that. You know what I mean? Especially when they understand like my contribution to that whole. You know. But yeah, for someone to sit there and just hoard all of that and be like, well, it was all me and there was nobody else. Like what? You know what I'm saying? That would definitely piss me off. Now, once, twice, then after a while, it's just kind of like, I'd probably be in the same boat, man. Like, no, let's just be clear. You didn't do shit. And let's talk about how you didn't do shit because this is what I did. And I don't even I hate to talk about myself. Like, that is like, it's like pulling teeth. But eventually, it's just kind of like, hold on a second. Like, you have to like kind of check people and be like, no, like, let me tell you how I get down and let it be known. And then I start going into like this other mode of myself, which it works, but I don't like to be like that dude, like that's just not my style. I'm more on the quiet reserve side, just kind of, just kind of hanging out. If I start drinking that potion though, for whatever reason, it turns on, but sometimes. But yeah, man.
Good, man. We can. You know what? This was good, man. This was good. I
uh,
mean, anybody who has any understanding of EQ whatsoever can probably tell that I was referring to some personal stuff today. But I mean, that's what we started this for, was so that we could come on here, chat about our lives, chat about our goals, our dreams, our ambitions, things that piss us off, things that make us happy, get it all out there as an outlet. Some
mm-hmm.
things are a little too personal, so that's why I keep things vague. Uh, but overall, man, like, I think anyone who listens to this, any man, husband, whatever, at a minimum, they can be like, shit, there's other folks going through it too. You know what I mean? These boys, Papa and Salt, they talked about it on, on last week's episode or whatever. Like, oh man, like they're going through shit too. And it's not airing dirty laundry. It's not advertising my personal relationship with my wife or my friends or my family necessarily. That's not, I don't think, and I'm even talking about previous episodes that we've done. That's not the goal. The goal is to let folks know, like, we all go through shit, like Salt and Papa aren't just these two incredibly attractive and smart men out here making moves in life. We got shit too. And we mask it with a smile and a bourbon, man. So anyway, I'm gonna say that to close it out. If anybody's watching this and wants to reach out, you got some shit going on and you need a stranger or phone a friend, tell you what, reach out. We'll bring you on the show. We'll talk about it.
You said anybody needs a stranger, and I was, you ever heard that? You ever watch that Dave Chappelle? I was like,
that ain't what I meant.
Anybody needs a stranger or a phone? I was like,
what was that, man? Yeah. Oh, you know what? I didn't even go there.
It's when you sit in your hands and they go numb. You ever give yourself a stranger, Dave?
Hey. Cruxman out.